Welcome to another Secret Influence TV interview. Secret Influence TV is a channel to help people become better influencers, because I believe that in life, if you can't influence others, then others will influence you, life will influence you. And you need to influence people if you want to progress and have success, whether it's in relationships, in a career, in business, be able to influence people to listen to you, to follow you, to buy from you, to become fans of you. So I interview people who have a story to share or some expertise to share in an interview. So today I'm very excited. I've got Michelle Ricketts, and Michelle describes herself as a business consultant and value architect. So welcome, Michelle, to Sigma to this TV.
Thank you so much, Nick. It's thrilled to be here.
First of all, perhaps you explain what you mean by value architect.
Yes, I get that question quite a bit. So value architect, I like to bring value to my client's business. So whether that's looking at their foundation, whether it's touching a piece of how they're managing their day, whatever that looks like, it's about adding value. And that's where that comes from.
And who is your ideal sort of target market? Who do you help? We all have to talk about target market. We really narrow down that niche of people. Who do you help?
Absolutely. Well, I like to help businesses that have been in business. And I used to say I don't work with startups, but it's amazing. You can talk to a business who's been in business for 3 years or 5 years, and they still consider themselves a startup, and their revenues might suggest that as well. So I usually will say that it's business owners that have been in business 1 to 5 years. They're typically somewhere between 50,000 and up to 100,000, and even into the millions, although I don't often work with businesses of that size. And they really are still doing a lot themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that they're physically handling everything, but in some cases they have their team still coming to them, and they're approving everything, and they're touching everything, or a lot of things. So that really doesn't allow them to step aside and the as my brother likes to say, orchestra leader, right? Uh-huh. They are still much too much involved with their business. So that, and then they also are coachable. So somebody who's willing to take direction and to at least consider the options of trying something a different way. Because if that's not the case, then it's very hard to help somebody move away from where they are. And those are really the initial criteria. From there, then I'll see, what type of business, what are their needs? And it really is understanding that and then determining where I can help them. Because I do have a number of different elements that I can work with, but I also have partners, strategic partners, and people that I can put them in touch with if that's needed as well. So that's kind of where we start.
Okay, so just pick up on a couple of things you said. I think you said that it helps starts in the first sort of 3 years of them being in business, and I know there's a lot of stats about the first year 9% of businesses, small businesses will fail, and in 3 years another 50%. What is it about those first 3 years, or that people, that a lot of businesses struggle? I mean, I think I've read that if you get past the first 3 years, then you're likely to get on the next 10 years. What is it, do you think, that businesses struggle with this?
Well, a lot of it really depends on revenue, right? In business, you have to get sales going. So it's how quickly can they get sales and have revenue coming in, because a lot of things are determined by that. And so revenue is key, but also having those processes in place. Initially, it's probably them doing a lot of it, but then it's having things that are structured enough that somebody else can take over and know how to do it, and it's not all on them. And the sooner that they can start to put those two things in place, they will be able to be more sustainable over the period of 3 years, as well as there's lots of other little things you need to do. But if you don't have your processes nailed down and you're able to make corrections to those, and you don't have the revenues coming in, it's very, very hard to actually have a business flourish.
Okay, and another thing is, the why thing. There's a lot of talk about, it's not what we do, it's why we do it, and the why that motivates us and gives us a passion to achieve success in what we do. And often the why is linked to our story that led us to the point of where we are. what's your why? And you know, is there a story behind what led you to do what you do?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I originally actually was in corporate for over 35 years, and I really loved what I do. I don't believe in somebody getting up in the morning and not enjoying what they do. You got to look yourself in the mirror every day, right? So I really enjoyed my corporate career, but I've been restructured 3 times. And in 2017 and 2018, I was doing an event series for business owners. I had had an event business since the 90s, and was bringing in speakers for this series for entrepreneurs. And watching what happened through that series, I really saw that there was a lot of things that entrepreneurs didn't have access to or even know about that I had learned in the corporate world, as well as courses I had taken, training, etc. And having been restructured for the 3rd time in 2020, I decided that I was going to go 100% my own business and move into the full entrepreneurial space myself, because I really enjoyed seeing the change and working with business owners and seeing them really start to see that difference in their business. It's not immediate necessarily, but in some cases there are little things they can change right away and see some quick wins, and then the other things happen over time. So really love that feeling of being able to help and guide. And I was literally working with someone last night with his calendar. We'll get into that later, but it was thrilling to see him really absorb it, take it in, and see how it was going to help him the next day, right? And that's a small thing, but it's those wins that really it makes the heart go, right? That's a big part of why I do what I do.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can relate to that. Another point I saw on one of your channels that you have is Systemize and Monetize, and I love that because it's very memorable stuff in my mind. And I think certainly Systemize is a great I think it's a great thing that we should all aim for, try to automate as much as we can and have systems in place. And with that, do you think that Systemize and Monetize, that approach, is that something very much is a pillar of what you do, your approach to Systemize and Monetize?
Definitely. On the systemized side, it really is all about what I touched on earlier, was having those processes documented and structured out so that someone else can follow them. I think, what happened with COVID was a big example for a lot of businesses that they didn't have that in place, because now they're scrambling to get, what does John do? What does Sue do? It's in their head. I don't know. What do I do? Right? So there was a lot of that. So that's a key part of it. But another piece, and the monetize, I'm so glad you asked that, because we have a piece of our business that is all about taking what I like to call their digital assets. So say, for instance, somebody's done an interview like we're doing today, or they have a blog, or they've done a podcast or something. Those are their digital assets. And a lot of times they're sitting on the shelf gathering proverbial dust. Sure. And we take those, working closely with my brother's team, we take those and turn those into assets that work for them on social media, creating video, and really being able to turn those into something that's going to generate money. And also there's an element of being able to do a recurring revenue. So it really is looking at what they have, what do they need, and making sure those 2 elements are in place, having that structure and process, but also being able to monetize with the systemization and getting some of that automation in there. So it's a combination.
So following on from that, so as I said earlier, I very much believe that about influencing is an important part of any business. And sort of copywriting, you have to be able to persuade people to take some action at the end of the copy. There's usually a call to action, and branding sort of fits into that. How do you sort of personally, do you look to influence your audience through your brand? How do you do that?
Well, and branding is one of the things that is so challenging, and I'm continuing to work on it. because I was known as somebody in corporate. I was an executive, I was in sales, account management. So that was a lot of my brand before I became a full-time entrepreneur. So I continue to work on my brand. And even one of my clients was saying to me the other day, Michelle, you've got to get more of you out there on my social. So it's something I work on, but it really is about the old adage of know, like, and trust you. And when people do that, then that's when they're going to start to listen to you more, take on some of what you're suggesting, and then possibly become a customer and buy from you. And it's not really a secret sauce to it. It is something that you have to do, and it takes time. And over time, if you put in that work and get yourself out there, get your audience to get to know you, that will pay off eventually.
I like that point you made there about getting people to know, like, and trust you, because I think that's the know, like, and trust is the sort of bridge between turning clients and customers also into fans of your brand. Because
absolutely,
what you ideally want, I think, is for your clients and customers to obviously be repeat customers, and to also give a testimonial and pass on their how wonderful I think you are, which can only do if they're fans of your brand. And the more they like and trust you, the more likely they are to be fans. So I think that's a very, very key point there. One other thing on your LinkedIn profile, I saw you had a line that said helping overworked owners stop doing everything themselves to achieve business freedom, dance regularly without sacrificing health and family. Do you think too many owners or business leaders try to do everything themselves and find it hard to let go when I think when perhaps leadership comes down to delegation? Do you think that there's different opinions what leadership is, but I think actually sometimes leadership is having confidence in your staff or your that's great. I love that line that stuck out. So what do you think?
100%, and it is. And being a good leader is hard, because a lot of times we feel, whether it's a business owner or just as a human being, if it's something that you're good at, I can do it better myself. I can do it faster myself. Oh, it takes me longer to show somebody else. And in some cases, that's true. But when you take the time to show somebody else, it frees you up to do the things that need your attention and allow somebody else to learn and get better at it. So no, initially, they're not going to be as good as you, but in the long run, they actually may become better than you at that thing, because we all have things that we're not good at or we don't like. And that's where it's good to delegate. And that's where what I was just talking about with video creation, all that my brother's team does, it's really being able to delegate those things. Most of us are not very good at social media, right? Most of us, I always say to clients and people I talk to, if you're not an accountant and you're not a lawyer, those are two things in your business you should not touch, right? We get that, but people don't always get that around other things in their business, things that they think they should be doing, and they feel they may be doing really well, but in the long run, they're not, because they're pulled along doing many different things. And so nothing really gets 100% of them. So as you start to delegate, which is so key, and delegation, often people think, oh my God, I can't afford an employee yet, or adding another employee. But sometimes it's a part-time contractor. It can be outsourcing. It can be a partnership. There's lots of different ways that you can add to your business and take away from you without you having to add a full-time employee, right? FTE is not always the answer. So it's looking at, what do you need? What is it? And what are my options with that to be able to delegate, and then focus on what you need to focus on as a leader. And that is really, really tough. But when people find they can do that, that's where they start to see some great gains.
And then, I mean, how do you following on from that, how do you manage your time? Because I guess, if we're talking about automation and systemize things, is that key? Is that one of the ways you manage your time, by trying to systemize things? And
Absolutely. So delegating is part of it, but it's always interesting when people say managing time, because we've only got 24 hours in a day. A lot of people always talk about the fact you can't change that. We can't. So it's not managing the time, it's managing what you do with the time. And so that's something that is really key. And many who know me would call me the queen of calendar and the queen of routine. And it's not that I'm stuck in it, but I let my calendar be my guide. It's an asset. It's not a liability. And a lot of people use their calendar as a liability. When you have a to-do list and you have a few things on a calendar, and forgive me, Apple, but iCalendar is probably the worst calendar that people use. If you want to use a calendar, use a Google Calendar. I'll be happy to show you how to do that. Makes such a difference to be able to do different things with your calendar, and you look at it, whether the night before or the morning when you get up. What does my day look like? I like to do it the night before, because then I can see, like, preparing for today. I've gone through what Nick wants to ask me. I know what I'm going to wear. I know when I have to be ready. I'm going to do my workout before. I have to get up earlier today to do that, because it was only 9 o'clock here when we started. But you have to prepare. But if you see your day the day before, you can prepare. How long, if you have to drive somewhere, how long have I given myself time? Have I got everything ready that I need to take? I'm not scrambling 5 minutes before I have to leave. These are all things that when you use your calendar effectively, it can guide you and help you, opposed to being, oh crap, where am I? What? Right? Which is what some people do. So it really is what you do with that time, and being able to then, and in some cases, you get to a point where you can delegate to somebody helping you with your calendar, right? Which is even better if you have an assistant or a virtual assistant. But it is really looking at, what are you doing with that time? And when you block your day out, then you know, and you're not guessing, and you're not having to remember. We only can put so much in this brain at a time. Having to know where you have to be and when doesn't need to be part of that. Put it on the calendar, get it blocked out, get everything in there, even a to-do list. Sure. Put it on your calendar. You have to have the time to do it. So why put it on a list to look at to see when just put it on the calendar, get it done. So happy to always talk more about that, but I could go on for hours about a calendar.
I think they're great points. I think I read somewhere that, or I heard someone say that, a lot of business spend too much time working on the sort of the admin side, and the side of business which has to be done but won't produce any clients or leads. It's not going to get any profit in. And they get too much time absorbed in that, when what they should really do is spend, as a business owner, they should spend more time actually directly on the marketing, sales, or build up the business, getting the clients, and that sort of thing. That's the stuff that they should pass on someone else. It's knowing the value of where we've got the same amount of time in the day, like you said, 24 hours, but it's where you place that time and committing to that and prioritizing, I guess. But
exactly.
I mean, following on from that, you talked about sort of, obviously, earlier, people in the first sort of 3 years or so of the business. Looking ahead, I refer to lots of quotes, things I've heard. Again, I heard that someone said, when you start a business, you should always be thinking also how you're going to leave a business. You shouldn't. You should have, think, as your business progresses, what's my exit strategy? How am I going to? When do I retire? What age? How am I going to sell it? Pass it? Do you think that's true? Do you think that when you start a business, you should also actually be thinking or considering how, what's your exit plan? What do you think of that?
Absolutely. And somebody greater than me said to start with the end in mind. And that's exactly what you want to do. You should do that with everything, but definitely when you're putting a business together, because you want to understand what does it need to look like at X time. And so a lot of people today, if they're going to invest in a business or they're going to partner with somebody, they don't want to do the business. They just want to own it, or they want to be part of it, but they don't want to actually work in it. So if you haven't set it up for it to work independent of who owns it, then the business isn't set up right. And a lot of times when you're going to sell a business, of course, you're going to have a valuation on the business. Whoever's doing that valuation for you, typically a mergers and acquisitions organization, they're going to need to see the numbers. They need to understand the people and the processes and the systems and all of that, and what, the revenues, etc., sales, how operations work. They need to see, and we'll quote Mark Wardell, who says it's a glass ceiling. They want to see into the business, right? So there, you want to be able to understand what's happening. And with that, you have to start and set it up that way so that 10, 15, 20 years later, it's set up properly and you're not trying to now go in and change things. It's much harder to do when you're about to sell, opposed to you set it up purposefully, and you've done it all the way along. So much more important to set it up with the end in mind. And not everybody necessarily wants to sell their business, but if you're thinking about someone in your family taking it over, and if you are, you should be selling it to them too, because people value what they pay money for.
Sure.
That whether or not whatever you want to do with it, and even if you want to stay in the business, it's likely that your involvement in the business at year 5 is not going to be the same as year 25. Yes, you still want to be involved, but you don't want to be slogging in the business every day. Sure. So you want to set it up independent of you. So at year 25, you can come in once or twice a week. You can, see what's going on. You don't have to be in there in the trenches. So it really, really is important.
Excellent. No, you asked that question. Absolutely perfect. Thanks for that. So we live in an ever-changing world. Technology, and obviously, particularly in sort of social media developments, and the way thoughts on the way we approach business, and how do you keep up to date with things? How do you? We all learn and keep up to date in different ways. How do you feel it's important to sort of keep up with developments, and how do you do it? Is there a certain approach? Do you watch YouTube? Do you read? What's your sort of approach to keep up with things?
I'll say it's a combination of, I'm not a huge reader of actual physical books. It literally puts me to sleep, but audiobooks are a good option. So I do that. And then as well, YouTube, really great for being able to see different people, follow different people, get and absorb information, and keeping up with what you're seeing on social media, understanding it's not always right. So you need to differentiate between the things that are actually true and the things that are the fake news, et cetera, but really using different sources and then getting out. I think there's a time when we've forgotten to get out, get out of our house and network with people and meet other people and go to events, even things that are nothing to do with business. I went out to music to hear band the other night, and sitting there at the bar talking to a couple of people, and I met a lady who knew somebody that I knew in business, and we were chatting. So it wasn't an intentional networking, but I ended up doing some networking. So you never know what corner something is going to be around that you can learn from, right? And even just watching as you're out, seeing different people doing different things, we learn from really everything in life. So it's absorbing that and taking things in as learning, and not putting up walls or just sitting at home watching TV. You're never going to learn that way, or you may not learn what you're looking to help with your business and your life. So really, really engaging in the world is how I like to think of it.
Excellent. No, I like that. That's a great attitude. I think opportunity can come at any time, any place.
Absolutely.
As you probably guessed, I like quotes, and I get inspiration from all the time, every day. So a couple of quick questions related to those. I mean, do you have a favorite quote?
I do, and I've got a couple, but Maya Angelou, I really love a lot of what she has said over the years. But one of hers that really resonates with me is all great achievements take time. And that's something that today we want everything like this, right? And everybody wants to be the next pop star, the next influencer, the $1 million business overnight, all of that. But all great achievements take time.
That's a great one. I'm going to add that to my list, and I'll refer to my next interview. Inspiration. Is there anything or anyone that inspires you or has inspired you in life?
Definitely. I mean, there's a number of great individuals that we see on social and different areas: Simon Sinek, Tony Robbins, Gary Vee. But for myself, I'll say the person that probably two people actually that probably inspired me the most, two strong women. My mom, first of all, raising 3 children on her own as a single mother, and working full time as a nurse at a psychiatric hospital, like crazy the things she was able to do. She wasn't perfect by any means, and there's a book coming out about that, but definitely my mom. And secondly, my high school track and field coach, Cecilia Smith, who is still in touch today. She lives on the other side of the country, but an amazing woman, and really instilled in me a lot of great values, more on the health side. My mom was a bit of that, but definitely those 2 ladies very influential in my life.
No, that's I think with one of the hardest things we face is staying motivated in times of stress and overwhelm. And I think anything that can give us that inspiration, motivation. And I often say who motivates me is my 7-year-old son. And he often comes up with quotes like, there's a couple of moments, when I was like it caught me a little bit stressed. I didn't think it was showing, and he looked at me and said, "Dad, ninjas never give up." And it was like I don't know. I mean, he loves ninjas, but the point was quite sweet. And I think, and the little things he does, actually, I think, yeah, that's quite, you're quite motivated.
Nice.
So I think, yeah,
Nice.
we can get it from anywhere.
Nice.
Just to go back to the influencing thing, I genuinely believe that, in life, if you can't, influencing is a bit about sort of positive control. It's a positive thing. It's about making impact and making the right impression, and obviously getting people to listen to you and take the action you want. Which, certainly if you run a business, if you can't pay people to take the action you want, and if you can't persuade to do that, you're not going to be in business long, because you need people to listen to you and buy product or service. Like it was a career, to get interviews, have motions you need to influence people. So just get your sort of thoughts briefly on that. I mean, do you agree with that, and how do you sort of have a certain, does that feed into things you do, that you try and
it does, it really does, because I think, as you say, you want to influence people in the right way and have people be able to see what the value you're bringing to them and take that on. And that can happen in various ways, but it really is about how is that person receiving what you're saying. And I was talking about this the other day, where somebody was saying, well, no, that's not what I said. And it's, well, part of it is the receiving, part of it is the sending, right? And they're very different for each of those people. So to influence somebody, we need to ensure the message that we're sending is being received the right way. And for some people, that's auditory. For other people, it's visual, right? So you really need to make sure that you understand the individual that you're speaking with or that you're corresponding with, however that may be. And just because you love texting doesn't mean that other person will love texting. If you're an email person, doesn't mean that's how they're going to receive your information. So you really need to understand your audience, whether it's of one or of many, and then that influence will come by how they receive whatever it is you're trying to impart upon them.
Just to add to that, I think that's understand your audience is so important, and that's why we often we start in business by identifying our ideal client and nailing down as much information as we can about them. And there's a great saying I love from I learned in NLP, New Linguistic Programming, where people like themselves. So often when we like someone, it's because we can see aspects of ourselves. We might meet someone and say, oh, something really nice about that guy. I don't know what it is. I just really, I like them. I really clicked. And it's because you can see things about yourself in them. You've got little points of and I love that, and I think that is what it's about. It's about really sort of the more you can get to know people, and business about relationship building. Building good relationships, and understanding people's challenges and how we can help them. So I think that's a fantastic point. It is really, that is what life's all about, isn't it? Understanding people, helping people, relationship building, and it's no different for business.
Absolutely, yes.
So just so you talked a bit about sort of in when I've read your sort of LinkedIn profile about sort of helping sort of overworked business people who are struggling to achieve the freedom and balance. Do you have any? I mean, just going to sort of finish up. Do you have any tips for people who are they're starting off and perhaps in that first year of business and there's so much you need to do, get a bit overwhelmed, and it's not knowing quite sure how to prioritize, what they do, have to do their thing. Do you perhaps share a few tips of?
Yes, absolutely. I've got 3 tips for you. And the first one I'll say, and I bring this into my business too when I'm working with clients, is about your health, your wellness. Sometimes it's as simple as, you're sleeping right, you're eating right, you're doing some exercise, you're taking care of yourself, because taking care of yourself is first and key. You have to do that so that you're around to take care of others and your business. There's a reason when we fly that you put the mask on you first if needed,
Sure.
because you have to be able to take care of others as well. So that is the one key for everyone, business, life. Take care of yourself first. Make sure you're doing that, because that will allow you to enjoy life more, but also be around to take care of others. So that's the first key. And then similar to the quote, the Maya Angelou quote, is that business doesn't happen overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day, so to speak. So give yourself grace to fail and redo. You get a redo, right? So it's not all going to happen the first time around, and you're not going to get everything overnight. So give yourself that grace to say, okay, I made a mistake. And inside of that, we want to also go outside your comfort zone as often as possible, because that's where we learn, right? So whether it's in business, whether it's in life, and sometimes they coincide, but go outside your comfort zone, make that mistake, learn from it, move on. Those would be my 3 tips for you.
3 excellent tips. I think without a doubt, anyone could apply those to your life, and whatever we do. I think it's important to prioritize ourselves. Can't help others if you don't help yourself first. And and also put yourself a comfort zone. I think it's good to stretch ourselves, challenge ourselves, and push ourselves where needed. But so it's coming towards the end of our interview, and I just want to say it's been fantastic chatting to Michelle. It's great to get to know you, and sharing some of your story, but also packed full of obviously great tips of for business owners. And I will share your contact details you're in the on these video. But is there a particular one way that people can contact you want to share?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, my LinkedIn is always a great way to reach me, just under my name, Michelle Ricketts. And Cohesion Services is the other way, although there is another company in the UK called Cohesion, so don't mix them up. But yes, that would be the other way to get hold of me as well.
Okay. And did you say writing a book? Imagine that.
Yes, I am actually working with a publisher. The collaborative book should be out this year, so that's, I believe, 22 of us, and that's Powerful Women. Outbound, I believe, is still going to be the title, but we'll see as it comes out. And if there are any ladies interested in collaborating, I think there's probably 2 more spots available for that book, and then there'll be a individual book most likely following that.
Okay, Outbound, you said it's called.
Yes, I believe that's the title. Don't necessarily quote me on that, because we haven't talked about that for quite a bit, but it's a collaborative book. If anybody's interested, they can reach out to me and I can put them in touch with the publisher.
Okay, so yes, I'll keep an eye out for that. Maybe we'll get you back off the book's going out and we can have another chat. So do subscribe to Secret Influence TV. Lots more interviews coming up with other influencers. We can all be influencers. We should all be influencers. We should be sharing our message, sharing our expertise. We should be impacting people, engage people, getting people to listen to us, getting people to follow us, making a difference. And I've got some exciting interviews coming up with some authors, film directors, and other people who do fantastic work with helping businesses grow. So thank you again, Michelle, and
thank you.
Yes, look forward to seeing you soon.